ADHD was once thought to be just a childhood condition, something you eventually grow out of. I used to believe that too. When I was diagnosed at 6, I couldn't sit still. I never listened and I was horrendous in school.
It was edgy. It was not my sort of thing, but some of those people out there, they really liked it.
But back then, no one really cared, and ADHD wasn't a thing the way it is now. So I just assumed that I had grown out of it over the years. Well, turns out I didn't. I just get better at masking, compensating, and pushing through. But no matter how much I tried to act like everyone else, something always felt off. Things that seemed effortless for other people, things like staying organized, managing time, remembering appointments, they felt so difficult for me. And for the longest time, I thought it was just my personal failing. I thought I was lazy, unmotivated, not trying hard enough, or just dumb. And I have heard that multiple times.
Dumbass!
But it turns out I was just dealing with ADHD in adulthood. And since you're here, maybe you think you have it too. So let's talk about it. The signs of adult ADHD that no one really prepares you for. The first is mental restlessness. People think of ADHD as hyperactivity. You know, kids bouncing off the walls, running around, and never sitting still.
Hyperactive little fuckers too.
But as we get older, that hyperactivity often goes inwards. Instead of physically moving, our brains never stop. It's like having 100 browser tabs open all at the same time. And music is randomly playing from one of them, but you just have no idea which one it is. My brain is constantly jumping from one thought to another, replying to conversations from 10 years ago, while also planning dinner, worrying about bills, and wondering if penguins have knees. Do they?
Penguins, very little penguins.
It's exhausting, and no, we can't just turn it off. Second is impulsive comments and interruptions. Did you ever blurt out something and instantly regret it?
Erica, why would you say something like that?
Or interrupt someone mid-sentence because you just had to get your thoughts out before they just disappear forever?
Let me finish. No.
Yep. Happens all the time. ADHD brains work fast, sometimes too fast. And that means we say things before we think.
Don't say it.
We don't mean to be rude and we're not trying to dominate the conversation. We just generally struggle to hold onto thoughts long enough to wait for our turn. Third is chronic procrastination and time blindness. Deadlines? Ha! They're suggestions, right? For us, time doesn't exist the way it does for neurotypical people. There is now and there is not now. And anything in the not now category basically doesn't exist until it's suddenly very, very, very urgent.
There is only now.
This is why we do things immediately or at the last possible second. But there is no in between. And we generally mean to start things early, but our brains don't recognize the importance of it until the pressure kicks in. And then suddenly we're in panic mode, cramming 3 weeks worth of work into a single all-nighter. And that was me in high school. My teacher once said,
Marius, I don't know how you do it. You do nothing all year, but you still manage to finish things.
well, to be fair, the bare minimum, but enough to get me through. So next is losing words and disorganized thinking. Like when you're mid-sentence and you completely forget what you were saying.
And all they can do is stare blankly.
Welcome to ADHD. Our brains move so fast that sometimes our mouth can't keep up. We lose words, jump topics randomly, or struggle to explain things in a linear way. It's not that we don't know things, we just struggle to get them out in a way that makes sense for other people.
That doesn't make any sense.
This is also why conversations with ADHD people can feel chaotic. We might start on one topic, veer into 5 others, tell a random story, and then somehow circle back to the original point 20 minutes later. It makes sense to us, but for anyone else, not so much. Next is motivation, or the lack of it. So people think ADHD is about not wanting to do things. But that's not it. We want to do things, we just can't start. It's like there's an invisible task between us and the thing. I call it the wall of resistance, and I made a whole video about it. Make sure to check it out. So we know it needs to get done. We want to do it, but there's no amount of willpower that can get us moving. This is because our brains are low on dopamine, the neurotransmitter that helps with motivation and reward. So even if we logically understand that finishing a task will feel good, our brains don't give us that little push to start. This is why things like dishes, emails, or doing the laundry feel impossible, while hyper-focusing on a new hobby for 8 hours straight is Very possible. Speaking of which, random hyperfocus on new hobbies. If you have ADHD, you've probably gone through phases where you were obsessed with something new.
Obsessed? Who's obsessed?
Maybe you got really into playing an instrument, like me, multiple times. Bought all the supplies and spent every waking hour thinking about it, only to completely drop it a month later and move on to something else. I can't even tell you how many hobbies I cycled through. 1 month I'm convinced I'm going to be the next great chef and spend way too much on fancy kitchen gadgets. The next, I'm deep into photography, even though I know nothing about cameras. Hyperfocus is one of the weirdest ADHD traits because it's the opposite of what most people expect. It's not that we can't focus, it's that we either can't focus or we can't stop focusing. There is no middle ground.
That is so weird.
So if any of these sounds familiar, you're not alone. ADHD doesn't just disappear when we grow up. We just get better at hiding it, working around it and finding ways to cope. But here's the thing, ADHD isn't a flaw. Yeah, it makes some things harder, but it also makes us creative, passionate, and capable of thinking outside of the box in ways most people can't. It's not about fixing ourselves. It's about understanding how our brains work and learning to work with them instead of against them. So if you ever felt broken, lazy, or like you just can't get it together, stop. You're not lazy. You're not broken. Your brain just works differently, and that's okay. What's the most ADHD thing you ever done? Let's share some laughs and let me know in the comments. If you excuse me, I just remember I have laundry sitting in the washer for 2 days. So see you in the next video.